Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Moore. Here. Mr. Root.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here.
Mrs. Passio. Here. Mrs. Kelly. Here. And Mr. Wright.
Here.
Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the clerk in the following manner. Posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Clerk's office on 4/5/2013, and emailed to the retrospect and the Courier Post on April 5th, 2013. On the agenda tonight is the introduction of the 2013 municipal budget. Current fund is $7,396,652.82, and the sewer utility is $870,000. Before we go to a motion to approve, would the administrator please like to do some informative?
No problem. Everybody has a package in front of you, which you'll see the page numbers. It's the same document that we looked over as the draft. I have the actual budget document, which, when we set the hearing dates and all that stuff gets put into it, and everyone will have a copy of the final copy before it goes up to the state. Basically, there's a few factors that are part of our budget document. We have the current operating fund, and we also have the sewer operating fund, so that's why you have two sets of paperwork in front of you. And basically, you have the revenue and the expenditure sheets, or revenues and appropriations for both sides. They do tie in. One of the things that's going to be challenging this year, at least from my point of view, and when we do our presentation for the public at the budget hearing, is related to the reassessment. Basically, everyone compares, they want to know, how does this compare to last year's tax rate? And it's always like, what's the penny, how much did the penny go up? And when you have a reassessment, it kind of throws everything out of whack, and what you really start focusing in on is not the rate per se, but how much did it go up per the average homeowner. So since everyone has a different average assessment, or has a different assessment, it kind of, it throws it off a little bit when you're trying to do that comparison from last year to this year. So I'm working with the auditors on some simple graphs that we'll be able to use at the public hearing so that we can help the public with that. But basically, I guess we'll just have to wait for that when it comes out. There's a few things that we need to keep in the back of our minds, and that's the levy cap calculation, and we have the budget appropriations cap. Right now, as the budget before you sits, we are under the levy cap by $44,000. And we still have some things that in the coming weeks that we're going to have to look at, and it may require an amendment, and that's based on how we proceed with the police department, with the retirements coming up, and the staffing levels, because the salaries also would dovetail if you increase the force, and would require pension payments and health benefits payments. So that $44,000 could easily go down to zero if we're required to increase the budget for that. That levy cap is one of the, I think it's the first page that you have there. One of the factors here is the exemptions. And basically, I think the biggest change in this year's budget was the health benefits increases. Basically, we increased the regular employees' insurance by about 15%, and the prescriptions, I think, went up by about 20%. Now, the budget was also aided by certain things. The pension payments went down this year because we discussed that previously, with the employees contributing and to the greater percentages to the pension fund. The state actuaries get together and they do their survey of what's required to be paid each year, and that went down by about $40,000 this year. So that kind of skews it. So we have numbers that go up and numbers that go down. And the reason I say that is because when you look at the bottom line and you say, well, how do we compare to last year when we're talking about what the total expenditures are? Were the grants in there last year, at the budget introduction? So the grants have a plus-minus effect. You could actually have a decrease in appropriations like we did last year, but yet your levy goes up because the amount of fund balance that's available on the revenue side is less than was available the prior year. This year, we're appropriating, at this point in time, $200,000 in the introduced budget. That's down about $45,000 from last year. And that basically we had a big year in 2010 where we actually had $700,000. Almost all of that was used in the municipal budget at that year. So basically, we could just, what we're generating is what we're using. And that's our, on your revenue sheet. So just bouncing around to a couple of numbers. The local.
What was our actual surplus for 2012? Do you know that?
The 2012 surplus is the ballpark. It's going to come in about where it was the prior year, a little lower, and it's unaudited at this point in time. So that's the prior year was. We started the year with about 600. We budgeted 429. And there's some idiosyncrasies because we did a deferral from the prior year that goes into surplus, but you can't spend it or budget it, so it kind of skews the equation. So we're going to be about 350 this year. So, and again, when the auditors get done tweaking the tax rate, that all impacts it also. So we're looking at about 350 by the time we're done. So we're going to budget 2 of the 350, and with the tighter budgets that we've been having over the years, the main things that impact your surplus being regenerated is the amount of collections that you have in taxes, your collection, your delinquent, your reserve for collected taxes, the rate that you use in the budget for that, which is, we've discussed that at previous meetings, is that making sure you get enough money to pay the budget. Also, the prior year's expenditures. So this year we have expenditures from 2011 that are lapsing back to surplus because you have 2 budget cycles that are always open. So I think that if you go back 3 years, we might have been lapsing about 230. I think this year we're going to lapse about 85. So the difference between the estimates of revenues and expenditures, I never want to use the word fluff, but sometimes I've heard other people say fluff, but I think you have to do a reasonable estimate. If you don't hire that person, their salary is still available, the health benefits and et cetera for that person that you didn't hire that was in the budget is not expended, so it goes back to surplus. So there's, the decisions that you make, during the year will impact that, and then how the revenues come in. If we expect to get so much from DMV and the state doesn't make the last payment in the current year, then the following year you actually have to reduce the amount of revenue that you can anticipate. It impacts the surplus for that year. So I mean, there's lots of little factors that go back and forth that tweak that number up and down. But ultimately, it's the difference between what you expected to expend and the amount you bring in, flows through to your fund balance. So with less lapsing, with the collection rate challenges that we've had in the past, we got lucky this year. We budgeted, I think, 260 for delinquent taxes, and they came in over 3. So that helped make up for the difference in the collection rate. And then you have your miscellaneous revenues to come in, all the FEMA projects and things of that nature that we've had for the last couple of years. When we get those state reimbursements, since if it was one expenditure, we could say, okay, police department reimburse the budget line, but when it covers the whole town for multiple departments, we bring it in as a miscellaneous revenue, so that also would go to surplus. So depending on what happens during the year, that number can fluctuate, but basically I think that the amount to be raised to support the municipal budget this year is going from $4,950,000 to $5,069,000. And the main difference for that increase on the revenue portion is the surplus and the collections. And then on the expenditure side, to compare the 2 years, last year with the grants in, because you show the final budget here, $7,472,695, and this year it'll be $7,396,000. So it's about 70,000 less. So you're going to have a higher levy, even though you're going to have a lower amount appropriated. And also one of the new factors that we have the past couple of years is the county, when they do the tax rate, actually breaks out the library now. So if you look at prior years, when you're looking at the actual rate, that included the library. Now it's just like the Board of Ed or the county where to actually separate that out. So there are all the things that get jammed into the document to make it work out. Sir?
Is that it?
That's it. And we will have a PowerPoint presentation like we've done in the past at the budget hearing to go over some of the key factors also.
Obviously, this is an introduction to the budget, so everyone can look at it a little bit, seeing the different departments. We can make some adjustments here. For example, what he said about the $44,000 on the levy cap side, we can, there's just some movement on different things. In previous years, we've sometimes, since the 2% cap has been here, we've been at the 2% cap. Sometimes we've been a little bit, remember the hard cap for 1 year, which was good, and another year we actually were below it. The question here is where are our priorities, where we want to spend the money as our priorities to maintain services, to improve services, to eliminate services. These are the questions and the efficiencies that we can bring in.
Right.
So over the next month, I would ask everybody to speak to Mr. Wright about things that are important to them and see where things can be increased or decreased. For example, we all know that we're going to see some savings in our trash picking up this year. Well, it's half a year, but the point though is that there is some savings, but as Mr. Wright will point out, that our health insurance went up and our pension payment went down, so you have all these variables that go up and down. So what our job here is to do is what are our priorities? That's what it comes down to.
Right.
And the priorities on the operating side is what we're talking about here. When we talk about an example of purchasing maybe a new fire truck, that's a long-term investment, that's a volatile item, and that's not what you're going to see in this budget. Purchasing of assets. Those are things that have a longer lifespan. A fire truck that what we have now, it's been there since 1987, so that's, is that 25 years more now. So we can look at those things a little differently, and this group will get together again and talk about our long-term plans where the bond comes in, where we talk about where the Borough invest back in the community, which we've been doing pretty well these several years, investing back in our roads and our equipment and our facilities. So once again, I know this is a little bit
Actually,
to everybody.
Can I interrupt on that?
Sure.
Where the capital does, we talked about this morning, so I'll share this with everybody. Where the capital does tie back into the budget document is basically if you're going to bond for $1 million in 2013, then $50,000 goes into the budget for a down payment on bonds, because you basically, if you do the appropriation for.
Where's that, Rich? I know that we did bond for 2013, so
right.
like we're bonding for the computer, we're bonding for the.
Right, they're the items that will make up the bond.
So
we haven't.
Where did you find that?
That would be under the debt service payment, I believe. It's on page 4. Oh, hold on a second, 5. Capital improvements.
Debt service?
Capital improvement.
Right above that,
Oh,
you can see where in 2012 it was $235. This year it's $50,000. So it's plus $15,000 based on an anticipated $1 million bonding in 2013, but we haven't actually passed those yet.
So anticipating that we're going to borrow money, which we've talked about a lot, that we want to borrow and it'll flow, so that we're never borrowing more than what the Borough can handle in a payment. But we can still invest back into the Borough with roads and building improvements and equipment, things like that. So you can see we were 35, 50, 35, and now we've got a higher number. And Rich, if you just want to touch on that a little bit, explain why if we're fluctuating, what's happening in the next few years.
Right. Basically, when I first came on board, we looked at our 5 to 10 year outlook, and we had a lot of, I guess, this building and some of the larger projects that happened 15 years ago, had us at a high point. And basically, we've hit our high point with regards to the debt service, and over the next 5 years, we'll be trailing it down. Now, obviously, if you didn't reinvest in your community, then you would have no debt service payments going forward. I mean, that's not realistic. So the plan that we've been operating off of each cycle is basically to try and meet somewhere in the middle as you go down the road. So while you'll still be reinvesting back into the community, but yet you wouldn't be as high with the debt service payments as you were when we were at our high point. And again, anything could happen tomorrow that would require us to throw that plan out the window. If you had something happen similar to like happened down the shore, you know, they will be investing heavily on the capital side based on scenarios that I'm sure they didn't predict. So you can never put your finger on it and say it is going to be exactly this, but your model that you're planning for.
But if there is, we'll have the money.
Yes, we legally have the ability to raise significantly more, and it's not realistic, I guess, in our environment to, you know, based on our ratables and things of that nature and where we are today to triple it. But
so what you're saying is we're being proactive on this.
we're being proactive and we're being fiscally responsible.
That's good. That's good.
I would like to touch, because I missed it in my opening points, when we frame this whole budget going forward from when the process started, the priorities that I've, based on what I've got the feedback from all the department heads, from the directors, public safety, code enforcement, recreation, and the borough appearance. I mean, they're the things that when you look at even the smaller line items in here where we made sure that we were hitting spots that may have been missed and weren't priorities in the past, you'll see that the amount in recreation in the operating budget is $10,000 higher. In buildings and grounds, it's $10,000 higher. And one of those line items, I was able to look at the finance other expenses and basically say, well, you know what, for the past few years, our estimates have been a little lower. So I moved money from finance other expense line items down into those. You know, so basically, again, the savings on the garbage and trash, you know, dovetails into that. So basically, you know, while it's tough to pinpoint one line item, you're looking at it globally is what the plan was. And I think that it's not saying that anything not on that list wasn't important and isn't in the budget. It's just that based on our meetings that we've been having and the conversations that the committees have been having, their priority areas.
And once again, if you're talking about operating expense versus any kind of investment, this is...
Right.
I guess one of the questions is, are we able tonight to give an approximate increase that if we did...
I'm going to do that, and I'm going to basically say that it's a rough estimate. Basically, with the changes, with the reassessment, that basically the average household went from 97.8 to 147. So basically, then you're looking at your net valuation taxable. When you do the division, we go from about 1.48, including the library, down to about 0.99. So you can't really say that our taxes went down because it's, you know what I mean? So that's not fair. I think a ballpark assessment is on the municipal side for the average assessment of 147. I'm looking at about $20 is the amount you're talking about annually. So it's tough. It's just municipal. So it's tough to relate that to, you know, to a single home because not everybody meets that average. It doesn't necessarily compute to the businesses because it's the average home assessment, which is where most of the input usually comes from. And again, a couple of the factors in there.
So you can't project. You can't.
I can give a reasonable estimate with the introduced budget in front of us is about $20.
Yeah. Now, I think what Rich is trying to say is that during the reassessment that happened last year, there was a substantial amount of homeowners that their property taxes went down, and then there was another group that went up and different things like that. So this year's going to be a transition year. So when we went from 97,000 as our average home, we were at 147. Right. So I think, you know, that's going to be, people are going to get a little confused because the rate's going down. A penny's now going to be worth what? Do you know that at this point?
It's
that 33,000, so it's going to be a different number. It's going to be a higher number.
Right. I wish I had my computer with me. I could
play
with that a little bit more.
When we do the more formal, I think, and when we talk about these things and decide where our priorities are and tweak
we'll
on
have a better idea of what it's going to cost the homeowner.
Okay. But I think right now, if the numbers don't change, I think it's a reasonable estimate is around $20 for the average of 147. Yeah. So, and that's how we've always identified it in the past. I think last year it might have been around 16 or 17 or something like that.
And if our goal is to maintain the level of service we have, improve certain things, it's going to be tough to necessarily come in with a zero reduction when we have certain cost increases and things like that, and it's so fluid. If you look on your document here, you'll see in the past that the current fund revenues. I mean, back in 2010, when I first got on council,
current fund revenue.
We had $700,000 in surplus in those years, that first year after that's how much money was left over after taxing everybody and spending what we did on the operating side. Those surpluses have disappeared because
we're on the cap now.
Well, not just the cap, what
Actually,
happened
just,
was,
if I can interrupt you just for a
Yes,
second there.
please.
At the end of operations for the 2009 year, we had 730 or
Yes.
740,000 in surplus, and we budgeted
we
700,000.
had to use it all.
And so basically, it was a tough year. It was the levy caps, the economy was
State aid.
was really bad, and we were trying to make sure that we gave the best presentation or the best budget and best local increase to the residents at that point in time. So I will say that we knew what we were doing when we budgeted that full 700, and there was talks about only using 6 or 5, and I think at the end of the day, it was determined by the majority of council that was the right thing to do at that point in time. And with the squeezing of the state aids and the increases in the pensions and things of that nature, which, by the way, next year, it could go back up again. It is, I believe, a gubernatorial election year, is it
It
not?
is, so we're in
So,
a year.
and I'm not saying that's why we received a $40,000 decrease this year, but I'm just saying that it might not be there in a non-election year.
But if you look at 2009, if you look at that, you
Yeah,
see
I see.
energy receipts and municipal property tax relief, the borough got that particular year, we got over $1 million. And then as you notice, every subsequent year, the amount is dropping. And then it leveled off in 2012 and 2013. So the money that was coming from the state dropped down.
Yeah, I knew that.
And that's where the surplus just disappeared. And I was on the council in that year when we passed that budget, and the idea was it was a rainy day. That was the idea. Surplus, building surplus, I don't know what other municipalities do. I don't see how you can build surplus
It's tough in this.
when you're trying to maintain, a level of service and at the same time, not increase taxes. I mean, a $20 increase is not, I don't think anybody wants to increase anything. And this board, this council has the decision to say, we don't want to increase anything. There might be ramifications later on down the road. Once again, Mr. Wright's saying that things are going there, so we have to be very cautious when we're looking at these things. But please look at these, and I think, Rich, you can see how well he's versed in all this. And he can explain any member of council, any details that you want to know.
On the state aid issue, I don't know what we're going to do after a couple more years. Basically, there's a provision in the law under the energy receipts tax that says they must index it by inflation every year, or else it goes back to municipalities. And basically, we used to, all the utilities would send checks directly to municipalities. And they said, you know what, this is crazy. We'll write one check to the state, and then you guys can deal with it. And now nobody knows how the formula works anymore. We just know that what we should get. The League of Municipalities is very proactive in this and has requested bills be passed at the state level. But basically, you can see that there's a plus minus 17.9. So because they're required, if you're on the revenue page under energy receipts tax,
Energy receipts?
for 2013, you'll see 832,954.
Yeah.
That is $17,900 greater than it was the year before because they're required by law to give us that increase. But if you look at the line above,
Yeah.
you'll notice that our contra aid went down by an exact amount. So basically, they moved the shells around and they comply with the law for the energy receipts tax because otherwise they would lose that as a whole and it would come back to us directly. After a few more years, I don't know what the rule will be. When you don't have any more contra left, they'll have to give you an actual increase.
And maybe we'll get an increase.
But they're the factors that are challenging. And two, the things, we had the certification from the local. I don't believe, the county hasn't introduced yet, and we don't have the certification from the regional. So we'll have to see how our reassessment impacts their levies, because they don't directly impact our budget, but on the reserve for uncollected taxes, which is at the end of your appropriation side.
The last page?
On the last page, you'll see the number is 438,164. It's right before the total, one line up.
Yes.
That number takes into account the fact that we must raise the money from our residents for the school, for the county, and for the Board of Ed. So that's another number that could flux based on what, at budget introduction, use an estimate. Once we get all those final numbers in, that number could go up or down, not a lot, maybe 10 or 15,000 based on what we have to raise for them when their final certifications come in.
I think the regional for our residents, from what I was under the impression, because of the reassessment, I think almost all the Borough of Runnemede residents will see a decrease on the regional tax.
Okay.
And I think that's a positive because we now are balanced out with our neighbors. Remember last year, we all saw an increase on the regional side. And, you know, there's a formula out there also that's, I think,
So just because they do a zero, when they figure out your share based on your ratio,
students and things like
I think we were, what, 58% choice? Now we're at 100. So that's how they divide that pie. Even when there's a zero, you end up paying
that. So the
more.
reassessment, I think,
You're
will
low.
help us a lot with the regional.
No, well, because we're now at 100%, we don't have a director's ratio that we're messing around with.
Yes.
Right.
And like I think what Rich is also, we are obligated to send that check every month to local and regional. We pay them regardless if we collect that $438,000. We're writing a check, their budget is based on taking all that money in. Our budget is based on the fact that we're not collecting $438,000. Okay, is there anything else? Any questions? Okay, so,
Oh, the only thing I wanted to point out is I talked to the auditors, and instead of having a special meeting, the 28th, which is caucus, would be the day that we would do the public hearing, so everybody wouldn't have to come in. You have to have 28 days in between introduction and I'm sorry, public hearing, because you may not have approval for adoption, but, so basically,
the 28th of,
this is kind of like an ordinance, except for it doesn't work like when you have to have, this is the first reading, and then we will have a public hearing, and we will give our presentations and stuff, so we will put right into the document
That will be at the next council meeting.
at the caucus on the May 28th.
May 28th.
Oh, at the caucus.
So we
Right,
don't need to have a special meeting.
correct.
So we don't have
We
to-
were talking about possibly doing a special meeting on the
Right.
14th or something like that, so, right, whatever that
So,
was,
so at the caucus, we'll present this.
right, we'll have the public hearing on it for the public,
May 20th.
May 28th.
Okay, so, would someone like to make a motion to approve on first reading and advertise according to law?
I so move.
With the public hearing to be held on May 28th, 2013, at a meeting beginning at 5 p.m.
I so move. I second that.
Roll call?
Mrs. Pasio.
Here.
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
We're voting
Mr. Root.
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
And Mr. Papa.
now. Yes.
6 ayes.
Okay, the motion passes. What we have is Resolution 1369. I don't know if everyone has been aware of this. This was an action that was taken by the planning board. It's a resolution waiving a performance bond for Gardner Funeral Home. I represent council on the planning board. I was not part of the Gardner funeral application that happened 2 years ago. What you should have is there should be 2 letters in your packet tonight. Hopefully some of you got a chance to read at least the 1 letter ahead of time. The second letter was just received a little while ago because there was some questions from our solicitor and our engineer about it. Basically, the evening, the last zoning board meeting, the applicant came in and asked for a substantial reduction on the project they were doing that they had gotten full approval for. Basically, they were going to do a major site plan change to the property. In the second letter that you see from Mr. Raganese, who represented the Gardner Funeral Home, that the applicant had decided to, because of their own reasons, not to do the major site plan change. So all they're doing is one small portion where they are removing some garages that they have on the property. I think all of you are aware of the property, and replacing those garages. The letter that the planning board unanimously agreed that they would ask council, because it's our prerogative to do this, is to waive the bond requirement. This is something that happens, council can waive it, they can reduce it, they can do different things like that. Each one should be looked at individually. In this particular case, Mr. Rowan's letter pretty clearly says that the planning board recommended that we don't do it, that they don't feel there was a need. Our engineer and our solicitor had some concerns that the borough might have some liability on this if we allowed this. And I believe Mr. Raganese's letter clarifies things a little bit more. And just summarize it quickly, is had Gardner simply went to our construction and zoning department and said they wanted to tear the garage down and build a new garage, they would have not had to go in front of our planning and zoning. And I think that's the biggest issue, I believe, on this application. They cut so much down that they could simply get a permit. And the argument that they made to the planning board agreed to this, that there was no reason to post a bond. They're not going to do any road work, there's no site work, there's nothing that would impact the Borough of Runnemede in a liability sense, that we would be responsible to go in there and fix something. That's the idea of a bond. The applicant doesn't do it, the borough goes in and finishes it. I do not believe that Gardner's is not going to finish the garage, that they're going to tear down and rebuild. If this was a road opening project, if this was site work being done, I think the borough has an obligation to ask for this bond, at least in the amount of any work that they were going to do. But there's nothing that they're doing that we would have some responsibility or liability.
Now, are they still able to do the project they wanted to do? They just downsized them? So this was all part of the original plan? Though.
They had approval and they withdrew it.
Oh, they withdrew it?
Yeah, they basically, if you look at it, they've abandoned this, I'm hoping you got this. Joyce just got this. We just got it. You literally just got it out.
I'm sorry, Nick, I didn't, the first letter, the Carl Muir letter, I had put it in everyone's box, I didn't read it tonight. Here it is, if anybody wants to take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, this is from the planning board. Does everybody have this one? It was in your box?
Was it all your box?
This only came at 440, and I
One from
apologize.
Sam.
Yeah.
I should have.
Yeah, and,
But the original letter was from our planning board solicitor.
yeah, they're not going to do it. They were supposed to tear down a house, they were supposed to build a big addition, they were supposed to do site work, lighting, drainage, all this kind of stuff. They've pulled all that away. They've abandoned the entire project. It's a shame. It would have been fantastic, but it's their decision on what they want to do. So they've asked us, and I think we've had 2 letters from both the planning board attorney and the applicant's attorney. And I was there, and I, like I said, the chairman and the vice chairman of the planning board, it was unanimous vote.
Mr. President, is this the same footprint as the garage that's there now?
I'm not, I understand that it may actually be smaller because they did testify that by doing what they're doing, they're actually going to gain a few parking spaces. So I would, unless it's just a reconfiguration, that by the way they're changing things, that, it's going to be 1 large garage instead of these 2 outbuildings, and they would actually increase their
So
parking.
you don't know if it's the same footprint?
I don't, like I said, I wasn't part of the application. They simply came in that evening to ask to really just withdraw this and just pare it down to just simply rebuild it.
Well, did this withdraw and did this apply for a permit to build garage?
That's what they're doing.
Did we take bond money from them already?
Well, they've spent a lot of money going in front of the
Yeah,
planning and zoning board.
But
They'll still be required to do all their inspections and do all that kind of stuff.
But did they post a bond already?
They did not post any bond. The original bond would have been for how much?
$319,000.
It was a $2 million project.
Yeah, I mean, so.
And there's nothing there. So, my recommendation is to follow this. I'd like to ask anybody to just, entertain a motion unless there's more discussion on it.
I didn't know if they just withdrew it. I mean, if they withdrew it, there's no need for discussion that we're having.
They've withdrawn it, yeah.
So,
They could just go pull a
yeah,
permit.
just go build it.
Yeah, but they're using their site plan as their drawings.
So they're still using the old plan.
They're using that
Site
one
plan.
part that says the garage.
So they're still using the, so they're not doing a new site plan. They're still
Yeah,
using the
they're-
original site plan.
Showing
Did
the
you see
garage.
it? Or did anybody see that?
I haven't seen it. No. Well, I've seen some of it.
Well, you remember,
Years ago.
yeah, you remember, if you remember, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
But the simple fact is they just want to build a garage, and I don't think there's a reason for us to force them to, for them to post a bond and build their own
Why
garage.
do this have a new site plan that they want to tear the garage down and put a new one? Instead of using this.
Well, they don't have to do a site plan because the garage doesn't trigger a site plan.
Well, then why?
And they already have site plan approval. You listen, they already have site plan.
Yeah, but they withdrew it, so.
They withdrew everything but that one
Oh,
aspect.
that one part of it.
They
So
said
instead of redoing it, they just withdrew everything.
everything but this
So
little
that's why
tiny
we have to,
10%.
Agreed, wait for
Right.
on.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
That's just fine. I don't see why they just don't.
I don't think they wanted to spend
Withdraw the
more
whole
money.
thing.
I don't think they wanted to spend more money. They had to, once again, they had to bring their engineer, they had to bring their, with the planning board, all that money to spend to come in front. This is us just doing a courtesy to our businesses.
That's fine.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Passio.
You first.
Yes. Mrs. Kelly.
Yes. Mrs. Moore? Yes. Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
And Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
6 ayes.
Okay, the motion is passed.
Resolution 1370 is a resolution authorizing the borough solicitor to solicit by RFQ or RFP for collection of municipal court debt. Who
Yeah.
wants to explain this one?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to the administrator. This was not me walking this on.
Right.
This was the
This,
administrator walking this on.
this is a topic that's been out there for probably about a year and a half. I'll give you the numbers first. Basically, the judge can order people to pay fines, but if they don't have the ability to pay those fines, it just becomes an uncollectible debt. Even the process and the rules that the Superior Court judges have been passing down, or the chief judge that's in charge of the system, is not allowing people to be remanded to custody because they don't have the ability to pay small amounts of money. So basically we have, and this is not just, this is everything, because when we get a fine, we have money that goes to the state, to the county, to victim funds, to certain categories, and to the borough. There's almost $300,000 in uncollectible debt. And that number hasn't fluctuated much from year to year. Some people go in, some people come out. We were going to consider, or we said that we would be interested in participating in an interlocal agreement or a joint purchasing option that Gloucester Township was doing last year, which is when this first popped up, I guess around the summertime last year. The municipal court, or the AOC, actually said that it doesn't make sense to do it that way, because the way that the court rules read, the fee for the collection agency, which is what they would be bidding on, actually gets passed on to the debtor. So there's no charge to the municipalities. They get 100% of their fines intact. So basically the court's opinion was, why do you need to do a shared co-op purchase if there's no cost to the municipalities? So the wheels fell off of that bus, and it's been sitting out there. We've had some conversations with the reps from the AOC over the past several months because of internal issues. They were here to do their annual court survey. They come in and they see how the operations go. They've been checking up on our newer court administrator, like they do. They have regular reports. They come in and they conduct reviews of the offices. So when they come through, we chat. We also had talks with them on the options available for shared services and things of that nature. So at one of those meetings, this topic popped back up, and then recently we've been talking about collections again. And basically I had a conversation this week with the local rep that comes in and basically says, please explain this process to me one more time. And she said that basically there's several reputable companies out there which will more than likely bid. They all do the same service, and basically what they do is they start, on top of everything else, they are credit agencies. So they might not care because there are people that know the system very well, so they may just let those fines rack up. But if they know that the next time they go to try and get a car loan or to refi their house, that it could show up on their credit report, that's one of the benefits of having the agency doing that. There's a small investment up front. I think once we put the RFPs out, there's a process that the court goes through, and it costs about $500 for the amount of paper that we have to send out and generate.
For each?
No, total, for the process to send out the notices for eligible, only eligible.
Do you know how many that we're trying to collect on?
You know what, I don't know the number of cases. I know that the total was about 297, and of that, 140 was eligible for us. Now, you're not going to collect 100%, but even if you only bring in 30–40% of that, and then you have the process going forward where people know that they'll get transferred over there if they don't make their payments, it could definitely improve on your collection rate.
My question to you is, what is this agency actually going to do? Is it going to actually go to judgment on these people? Because if the amounts are so small, to go to judgment is expensive. I mean, I don't understand.
That's
how they're gonna
basically,
how are they going to put the liens without a judgment? That's my question.
I don't know what their internal process is. I do have a brochure for one of them, but basically,
I'd like to see it.
yeah, there's no cost to us on that. So basically, the one that I looked at, they would have charged the person 20%. So, but again, it doesn't come out of the share that comes to the municipality, or it's not the municipality, to the court system.
So up front, you're saying $500.
Correct.
And what will that get you?
That, once we have a successful vendor, basically not all debts are eligible for this. So there's a review, and probably in batches, of what would be eligible. I guess that the proper term would be that they have to notify those people that they're being turned over, so there's proper forms that the court has to send out for those cases.
It's a process, the Fair Debt Collection Act.
Right. But I have a brochure that may not necessarily be the person we use, but it explained the process, which it was just
I'm
emailed
all
to
for
us one day.
collecting debt, but I just don't want to go over the deep end on this because it can get very costly. And if they guarantee only $500, that's pretty cheap.
Well, no, $500 for us is the cost, the initial down payment that we would have, that's our investment, in addition to the time for Teresa to generate the paperwork. And basically, the way it was explained to me is that the people come in and they still pay us. They would go online and make their payment, they would come to the window and make their payment, and then we cut a check to the agency based on what their share is. Because it's
Well, we don't lose anything.
we don't lose any money in the process.
They pay a fee, they collect a fee
From
the,
the person, from the debtor.
and they're threatening credit, credit report information.
Right.
They're just basically collections.
The Fair Debt Collection Act is very pro-consumer, so
Right.
you have to be very careful
Right.
about what you say and how you say it,
Mhm.
and there's time constraints, so.
Right.
What other kind of
I hope that
municipalities are
this-
doing this?
Right. Gloucester Township is doing it, Pine Hill is doing
Gloucester
it, there's
Township.
some other
And
towns.
what is their success rate?
I'm told that they've been doing well. I did not get a report on their municipality per se, but obviously that's something that we can request.
Yeah. I think we should look into this a little
Did
bit.
on Gloucester Township.
Pardon me?
7 companies did on Gloucester Township.
Wow.
And they,
I think the issue, one of the issues is the court revenue is down a little bit, and what we're hoping to do is to collect the money that's owed us.
Well, do we have the credit machine working again?
We're very close to that, it's government, what do you want me to tell you?
Well, and there's even
It's
some.
important to have a credit card machine working.
Well, the reason, do you want to explain why it stopped?
Well, several of the issues that we have are there is no minimum payment. So basically, because part of what we're doing here is that when the interest rates were at 5%, the banks comped everything. The truck came every single day and picked up our deposits, and now we have our police department deliver them within the 48-hour time frame. So we don't have everyday deposits anymore, and that's saving us $600 a month. When you look at the credit card side, basically, they have their fees that they charge. If a person comes to the window and says that I have a time payment, I want to pay $5, it costs you $250 to transact $5. So one of the things, and I have a copy of the directives that the AOC put out, is we need to look at what the collections come in are, and basically determine that we want to continue to assume that cost, because the court is not allowed to assume that cost. It's something that the borough has to pick up. And I'm not opposed to doing it. This has been part of the process that we've researched.
Right.
Can't you put a limit, say?
You're not allowed to do that, no. But even from the revenue side, we did do a report. I can tell you that the machine has been out of service for 6 months. And the AOC did us a favor, and they ran some numbers for us. And when it was working in January of last year, we collected $7,000 in January. When it was not working in December, we collected $12,000. So it's really based on the cases that are there. There's no guarantee that just because the credit card machine wasn't working that the people didn't pay cash. It is a convenience issue. There's definitely some folks that probably were not happy that they couldn't do that. And we've gotten some complaints from folks on that nature. But it was one of those things where I don't have a problem paying the $350 for the machine. We've already worked that out. We'll eat that cost. But the question is, we wanted to know how much we're actually collecting in court fines. And when they use that credit card and we pay that percentage, that money, if it's not a 265.5, which is a local ordinance, if it's a state ordinance, the majority of that credit card fee could be paying for the money to go to the state of New Jersey. So, I mean, it just was one of those things, and we just received a report from, on the collection analysis this week. So that's one of the things I've been waiting for. So we'll have a follow-up. Ms. Rock from the courts did say that she'd be willing to sit down and discuss that issue and, how the shared services work if a committee would like to meet with her on that topic. She said she's always available for that. So, but we're looking at every avenue to be more efficient in operating, and the credit card issue is on there. Out of the two, I would probably guess that there's more of a local return on investment on the collection side, but they're both equally important. So they're both moving forward.
I just was concerned about the collection rate and what their success rate was.
Right.
It's not easy to get blood out of a stone, and some of these collection agencies cross over the line. I don't know what the reputation is of these companies, but I do know that they can be very disreputable. And I would hate to see any liability come back to us if they violate the Fair Debt Collection Act.
Understood.
On behalf of on behalf of us, you know.
Well, I think, like I said, if the AOC basically signs off on these people, that there are reputable companies out there, and I think this process, this RFP or RFQ, I think we can make sure that they are reputable companies, correct?
Yes, an RFQ, when we do the evaluations, that's a factor.
Yeah,
We evaluate their past experience with other
right,
municipalities.
You have a track record. Agree. Have you ever had any violations and things like that? So, are there any other questions on this resolution? Anybody want to make a motion? No? No?
Yeah, I think we need more. Can we get more information?
Well, let me just clarify one other thing. Just because we do an RFQ does not mean we have to go with it. So if we can start the process by asking our solicitor to ask these people to give us information about it, we can get the proposals, look at the proposals, understand the process, and then either award the contract or not. You know, just because we're asking, am I correct to say this? Just because we're asking for a proposal, we get this all the time, we get proposals all the time. Does not obligate us to buy it. You
As
know,
long as we're not obligated.
you know,
As long as we're not obligated.
all we're
No,
doing
we-
is that with this resolution, and I'm not. like I said,
Council would actually have to vote for the contract for the company.
all it is that the
Keep it.
borough wishes to advises this process and institute a borough solicitor to go out and look for an RFQ. I don't know, this was the 11th, you know, it's something that I would argue in one sense that we have an obligation to try to collect uncollected taxes.
I understand.
We have an obligation to try to collect, you know, Joyce sends out letters. I think you're gonna start calling people now, right? Is that what you're gonna start doing? And, but, you know, once again, this is new.
It's one thing to collect taxes. It's a whole other thing when you start collecting debt. And consumer debt is a whole nother
Well,
bag.
these are fines that these people are fined by the judge that sits right here and says, you're supposed to pay $200, and they walk away. And one of the arguments that the police, if you read that one email that was sent to us, basically said, or the one letter that was sent to us, said, you know, because the county is no longer allowing us to put people in jail, there's no incentive to even pay. Because if they don't have the money and we can't throw them in jail, that's, I think, one of the reasons.
When they don't pay their court thing, they lose their license.
Let's-
That's
Only if that's the judge's decision to make them. How do you think we end up with But how did we end up with 296,000, of which 140 is ours? You know, and I mean, I've never heard about this collection agency. The one thing I would say that I like about it is that there's no cost to the borough.
Well, $500.
Well, that's a minimal cost, you know.
And we got to pay land the research, right?
Well, my personal opinion, I'd be willing to spend a few $1,000s to collect 140. If you look at the budget, our entire increase for the 2013 budget that we just introduced shows a $140,000 increase. So we could have had a zero increase if we had collected the $140,000. I'm trivializing it, but I'm just letting you know that $140,000 is substantial.
If we pass this resolution, what is our obligation?
To ask for, we're going to send out an RFQ asking these companies to bid on collecting our money. And we could set the parameters for those companies. And they could come to us, and we could kill it right then, or we could pass it right then. No, if there's no motion, that's fine.
I'd like to make a motion to look into it. I'd like to get some more information on it. So I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, to go out for the RFQ. Is there a second?
Wait a second.
Okay, any discussion? Any more discussion? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Patio?
Yes.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. White? Paz.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore. Yes. And Mrs. Calvin.
Abstain?
Okay, that's it.
4 ayes and 2 abstentions.
Okay, the motion passes. Once again, let's make those people who are concerned, we have not done anything other than ask for proposals. Once again, I would say that the public safety director, you know, with the CFO and anybody who wants to review this and understand it, I don't claim to understand this at all, other than the fact that we've got an outstanding debt out there.
It might be, I can't even guarantee that by the caucus, that Len would have enough time to even have it to the point where he can even give us a report, but he may be able to give us even more information at that point in time. We'll reach out to Gloucester Township again and ask them for more info. We have a copy of their RFQ that they sent out. We looked at how they
Even
proceeded.
this resolution that we passed, if we start to go in the wrong direction, we can rescind the resolution. You know, we don't need
Right.
to.
I will be very cautious,
Yeah.
and I will be,
Yeah, and I agree with you. Len's not here
we have to
tonight.
be, we have to be cautious.
All we're doing is giving them the ability to start talking, and if anybody from council wishes, you know, talk to Mr. Wright, get some of this information ahead of time. Like I said, I'm not familiar with this at all.
Right.
Okay,
We have to be cautious.
Right. No problem.
okay, what else we have? What's the code of welfare,
No,
Joyce?
I want to talk about making an amendment to an ordinance that we have on record right now for yard waste. You guys, I think everybody got one? Yes? Everybody got one?
Yes.
Currently, we are not picking up yard waste if it is in a plastic bag. I will be the first one to admit that at one point when I was cleaning communities, I was not understanding the full ramifications of people putting things out in plastic bags. I didn't think that it was such a big issue. Cut the bag open, throw the bag into a can, and put the yard waste into the truck. What's the problem? It does slow them down considerably. So every few minutes that they're cutting up in a bag and wasting the time because somebody's not complying with what the borough has set out when we send out. Does it go out with the sewer bill, the tax bills that they send out? Yeah, it's on the website, and it directs that it needs to be in an open container or it needs to be in a brown bag, like a brown recyclable bag that you can purchase that are 5 bags for $1.88 at any home center. They're relatively expensive, they hold a tremendous amount of stuff, and the whole bag is recyclable. So the ordinance that we currently have just says that it needs to be placed in a trash can. And then it doesn't state that it cannot be in plastic. I want to amend that it needs to be in a trash can, a recyclable paper bag, and that we go forth with what we're trying to establish in town, because people are putting out 45 bags full of yard waste. There's no limit on what they can put out. It's just, it's slowing down the process. So in order for there not to be any kickback from the Public Works Department saying, we're not picking it up because it's in a plastic bag, we are having labels made up that are saying your yard waste doesn't meet the requirements and it needs to be in an open container or a brown recyclable bag. Until we get those in place, we need to stop this. So I'm asking that we amend this to say, replacement of yard waste in a trash can, a recyclable paper bag, as to prevent the yard waste from spilling or blowing onto the street.
Okay, so you're making a motion
Yes,
to amend ordinance 316-18,
correct.
and your amendment is,
To do away with the word bucket or other vessel.
well, we can just do this as first reading and clean it up. How about we do that? How about we say amending ordinance 1316-18, first reading, language to be determined. Can we do that? How can we do that, Joyce?
Oh, yeah, language to be
Well,
determined,
no,
fine.
let's amend the ordinance. Okay, give it to me, write it down, say it.
Placement of yard waste in a trash can, a recyclable paper bag, as to prevent the yard waste from spilling or blowing out onto the street. And yeah, coming into contact with stormwater. I'm wondering if we should also put in there about the 50-pound limit?
If you'd like.
Well, I think that that is something that we do enforce. If it's over 50 pounds, it's not to be picked up. If the sticks and the debris that's left out is over 4
Well,
feet.
this is the time to fix it.
Right, so
You
I
wanna
would
fix
say
it, then you wanna
that
put
it
another
also
one?
needs to be no heavier than 50 pounds.
pounds.
Any sticks or branches need to be bundled in 4-foot bundles, no more than 50 pounds.
You know, I'm just happy that the residents are putting it out.
We'll get the discussion. Hold on a second. Sticks and branches are, was that
4 foot in
4 foot.
length, 4 foot in length.
And bundled?
And bundled into no more than 50 pounds.
No more than 50 pounds. Okay, is there anything else?
That's it.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, let's do discussion. Ms. Passio?
Listen,
Here's my comment.
I don't want to attack our residents, okay? I am happy when our residents are putting the yard waste and whatever out in whatever receptacle that they can put out, even if it's a bucket. To ask the residents to go out and purchase paper bags that are hard to get. Did you ever try putting a shovel full of leaves in one of those bags? It's very hard to do. I've seen them on my street where people have used plastic bags. They're neatly put together. They are rolled up and they are out there. And I don't see why the residents in our town pay the taxes, and I don't see why that Public Works cannot go out and dump those plastic bags just like they would dump a plastic receptacle. And
Because they have to cut open those bags.
I really don't care if they have to cut open the bag. If they have to cut open the bag and let them have something that hangs, either put it back in another receptacle or let something hang, just like you did say at one time. And I understand it could be a little bit time consuming, but you know what? It's not just about the residents. And it's not just about Public Works, it is about the residents. And whatever makes it easier for them. If they're good, if it makes it easier for them to put it in a plastic bag that they have in their home to clean up their yard, I'm all for it. I'm sorry, that's how I feel.
That's fine.
I have a question. With the recycling cans, we give the recycling cans out,
Absolutely.
and we could give more recycling cans
Absolutely.
out. I mean, it's something we need to address, because I think we need to be cautious. We can't just give everybody 10 recycling cans, but maybe we can address the recycling can issue where we allow people to have
Use them for their
more
own-
than one can. I mean, I personally have 2 cans at my house, and I went and bought 2 more cans. I put 4 cans out.
Of yard waste.
I'm not yard waste, recycling. And I do use a can for yard waste.
A recycling can.
No,
for
no, my
yard-
trash cans.
Hey, be clear here. You just said we're going to give our residents more recycling cans for yard waste?
I said, could we?
No.
And we do, no, you're missing my point. I used my recycling cans for my aluminum and plastic
Right.
paper.
Right.
They
That's
get
what they should be
emptied, they get emptied on Thursday. I have 4 of them. I then take 2 of them, or 1 of them, or none of them, and put my yard waste in, and use the can again. Well, I will say this, last year,
I have a problem with using our recycling cans for yard waste.
why is it, it's recycling?
I use mine.
For yard waste?
Absolutely. It's a
I use
trash
it
can.
sometimes for
It's a
trash.
trash
But it says recycling.
I'm not a big fan of that, but
I mean,
the point is that
The recycling-
we don't have, what we should have here is a report on our recycling. And I think we don't even need one, but we know that the people in this town are recycling more.
oh, yes.
They are recycling their yard waste, they're not putting it in the trash. They're recycling their aluminum and plastic. I can only go down my street, the streets that I drive down.
Well, the
The
ordinance
recycling is
doesn't
allowed.
say, recycling can. It just says
A
A
trash
can,
can.
anything.
Yes.
Van trash can.
But what we're saying
a
is,
trash
It
can,
says or other
but you're
than.
talking a recycling can. I have
So
a
we take the
problem
word
with that.
trash out, we put can, any can.
Any can,
okay,
but,
and you can?
see, I have a problem using our recycling cans for yard waste. I don't think that's.
But here's
proper usage.
here's the 2 things you gotta think about. Every ton that doesn't go to the incinerator saves us,
I know that.
$70.
I'm not saying that,
and the problem that when I was
what
director
you're
of public
saying
works,
is you're gonna give recycling cans to everybody.
I didn't say that. I said we can allow them to use it, and we could give some out. There's nothing that says, and even in our ordinance right now, that the recycling cans are given to us. They're paid for with our recycling grant money, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Say that again?
I said, you said we can give them out, but we're not gonna give them out.
No, I said we.
No, I think you were saying that we're not gonna
Yeah.
do 2,500 cans going out. all
Yes, I
on
said
time.
we have
That
the
one.
ability to do something. You drive the streets on Thursday, and you'll see that people put recycling out in provided
What
cans
do
that the
you
borough
think?
has.
I can only tell you this, only over from this past weekend, there were a tremendous amount of residents that cleaned up their yards. I'm all for it, congratulations, that's great. But if you don't make this exceptionally clear, in my view, you have situations, and I encourage any one of you, drive up Bowers Avenue, and I have a house that has 25 plastic bags lined up with leaves sucked up. So I have 25 bags of leaves, and less than 5 houses up, they took down an entire tree and didn't bundle anything. The pile is about 6 feet high, and it covers the entire front of their house. Public Works didn't pick it up, because it doesn't even come close to complying. So, to me, there has to be, if you're looking for enforcement in any way throughout the course of the town, whether it's speed or an ordinance or anything else, you need to say, this is the ordinance. This is what we are accepting of, and this is what we won't accept. Other towns do it. Cherry Hill does it. Haddonfield does it. Haddonfield has 5 colored cans that they give their resident for every single stuff that they put out, whether it's yard waste, cardboard, recycle, everything is, this is the ordinance. And our ordinance is a little sketchy. So it's like, if the Public Works Department, and it isn't just because I'm the director, it's because if it slows down the process of them collecting yard waste, because this particular Monday they collected and they never finished the whole town because so many people had put stuff out that it slowed them down and they still weren't able to finish, so they have to go out and finish it up the next day.
Well, would you be happy putting recycling cans and any other can for yard waste?
I think on the paperwork that we send out to the residents, and that's on the website, it says any open container.
Yeah, I know that. But,
So I'm not.
but you're not, but would you in the ordinance put, they can use their recycling can for yard waste? Would you put that in the ordinance?
I don't have a problem with that. The cans are given out to the residents. If they get 2 cans, I believe, and then if anything after that, they pay $5 if they want an additional can.
That is not an ordinance right now, but that's something that we could
That's
amend
something
also.
I thought.
And even what we're doing tonight, we can amend it again. You know, this is a living
There's a lot of
document.
gray area, and I just think that in certain issues, if you want people to comply, that you need to
Well,
say
then
this is.
put in your ordinance that they can use a recycling can or a regular can.
Okay, so,
Why can't you just say any trash can? A recycling can is a trash can.
Yeah, but it says recycling on it.
Well, it has a recycling
So-
emblem on it.
can you read it again, what the amendment would be, Joyce?
And they are recycling the
Waste
leaves.
of yard waste in a
And
trash can or in any type of can, do we want to say?
Open container.
That's it, open
Open
container.
container.
That's what it says on the paperwork now. It says an open container.
Oh, it actually is, if you have, I agree with putting it, not only for the quickness, not putting something in bags. You got a guy, you're ripping up bags to cut grass. The gas is gonna come out of the bag, it's gonna hit you in the face. I mean,
Well, why don't we, somewhere in between, we could say open containers, comma, trash cans, recycling cans, just that.
Put it in parentheses, put open container, example, recycle can, trash can.
Yeah, and
Recycling.
paper bags,
Put recycling cans in there. Let them know
Do
that
we
they
need to
can use
say-
their recycling cans.
Do we
for
need to
yard waste.
specifically say not plastic bags?
Yes,
And not plastic
not
bags?
plastic bags, because that was part of the issue that I had.
Okay, I'm
discussed.
happy with that if you put on there that they can use recycling cans. Sorry.
Yes, that's fine.
Is that good?
Okay.
And an open container, and then put
Trash,
trash,
recycling
can.
or recycling can,
Right.
recyclable paper bag, and then after that, no plastic.
And can we also, and I hate to add this to the amendment, is there cannot be trash in the recycling bin. When I was director, where we take our yard waste, sent us a letter. Do you remember the letters that we got? On at least 2 or 3 occasions, we got letters that specifically said, if Runnemede has trash in their yard waste anymore, we're not going to allow you to come to our place.
Trash should be in yard waste.
What happens is people throw a trash, beer can, a paper bag, or not paper bag, but trash.
Wait a minute, if they use the recycling can, maybe there will be cans, and maybe there will be aluminum in that
No,
can.
no. He's talking about like somebody goes to, if you live on an area and somebody opens up a candy wrapper, they throw it down.
Yes.
And you do cleanup in your yard.
And you rake your yard up.
You're cleaning up, but you're not throwing away the candy wrapper, and then that's going out to be recycled.
So when our guys lift that
Plastic
can,
bottles or whatever.
if they see trash in it, they now have a sticker that says, you can't put trash
Right,
in a yard waste recycling.
Fine yard waste too.
right.
You think we need to
Yard
define
waste is defined.
It is defined?
It does say leaves
Leaves
and
and
grass.
grass clippings.
We can
Oh,
put
leaves
leaves
and-
and grass clippings, no trash.
No trash, let's amend it to say no trash. Because we did have a couple occasions now, just to let you know how we mitigated that problem. First of all, we stopped picking up on people. And then secondly, our public works department now had to go through the truck, go through the yard waste a little bit and pick stuff out to make sure when they were dumping it, and if you remember this, that they had cleaned it before they took it to the,
Bev, should we put in there, before, when you have an open container, clean, or, empty open container / trash can? So this way they're not, I see where Mrs. Scully's thinking, they got 4 bottles in the bottom of it, and then they're throwing the yard waste in.
Because it's a recycling can. If you're using.
That's why I don't really.
Maybe we don't want to
like the
say,
idea of using recycling cans.
you say open
Because I
containers.
think an open container is the
And
best
then if
choice.
you're gonna use your recycling can,
like Mike and I do.
it's American, you can use.
You can use anything.
Oh, it's America, I'm glad you said.
I think we should just say open container. I think it is the best choice. I mean, that's, like I said, that's what.
No, because if we say recycling, they're gonna throw in their bottles, and they're gonna throw in their cans, and most of their yard waste.
Recyclable paper
No
bags,
plastic.
no plastic bags, not over 50 pounds.
Right.
What was the other thing?
Sticks
you
and
wanted?
branches.
Sticks and branches are 4 feet
Bundled in
bundled, 4 feet
What
lengths.
I put on the sticker?
Yes,
Okay.
bundled in 4 foot lengths and no more than 50 pounds. And just for,
Okay.
And
we're
when
having a 4x6 bright orange sticker
So,
that's gonna be done for them to affix to people that continually violate or don't do what is required. If they're not getting picked up that way, it's going to eliminate the issue.
I don't solve a problem, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No,
okay, so that's your, when you make a motion again, I hate to say that because we amended it, so will you make a motion to the amended amendment?
you know what?
Budget was nothing for you.
Come on, we
Motion is second to the.
Mr., are you okay, Mr. Root, with that
Or
amendment?
did somebody already do that?
Absolutely.
Second, okay, roll call.
Who made the second?
Mike.
Mike. Mr. Root. Mr.
Mrs. Passio.
I'm for everything but not being able to put it in a plastic bag, so I have to say no.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Mr. Capas,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly.
Yes.
All right, 5 ayes, 1 no.
All right, the ordinance is
I'm sorry,
passed on first reading,
pass on first reading.
Yes, I clarified.
Advertised according to law,
and our meeting date is going to be what? Because we
with
need
a
30
public
days.
hearing to be held on, this is only 7 days for this.
Oh, okay, so let's do it at the regular
I
council
have to
meeting.
get it on paper, so on May 7th?
May 2nd. So it'll be at the regular council meeting, if there's any other questions, and we can always talk about it some more before we do final reading.
I blindside you with one more. I spoke to the chief of police in reference to placing a stop sign at the intersection of 5th Avenue onto Bowers. There is no stop sign there. There are stop signs on each side of Bowers,
Oh, they got the right of way there.
and there is no right, there's
It's not a
nothing.
three-way stop.
Right, and it needs to be a 3-way stop. The chief expressed a concern to me that he felt that that was an issue if somebody blew through that intersection without it being a 3-way stop. At some point, I think there was a stop sign there, but then they put stop signs on each side of Bowers,
And they
and
took
they
that
took
one
that
down.
one away. So we need to try
Do you
to,
know what ordinance that is?
I don't, because I don't think that there was one that was clear. No one
Is it in
seemed
the
to
book?
really.
Well, we would be amending the ordinance for the,
Would it be-
add a different ordinance
I
without
think, you'd be amending chapter 106, it's traffic and vehicle,
Okay.
and traffic.
ordinance.
But are you sure it's not there already?
There is no stop sign at that intersection.
No, but
Yeah,
is there
no,
an
maybe it's in the
ordinance?
Maybe it's in the ordinance. Well, how about we do
Okay,
this?
so,
There was a
that's something
stop
we
sign
can look
there.
into.
We have the book right there if you want to, are those books codified?
They should be.
Do you mind, well, just give us a few more minutes?
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry, I just thought about it, because he had spoke to me like last week about it.
You know, I could table you.
That's fine, go ahead. Just add it to the list of the things you do.
Are you making a list then? Are we making a list?
Did you get the list of signs that
I have a list.
Officer Ortiz sent?
Yes, a lot of those signs are on, if they're on Huntersbridge Road, they're not our problem. I'm sorry to say that. I mean, somebody else needs to be notified. They are not the borough's issue. The signs that are faded, the signs that are not legible, they need to be,
Because it's a county road.
Exactly.
So who addresses it?
Ian Leonard, probably Ian Leonard.
Who addresses it
So
from the
who
borough?
addresses
I
it?
don't know, John, I can have him address it. He is a recipient of both of those
So he'll
lists.
talk with the freeholder.
We'll see what we can find
Or
out.
he'll call his person with the county.
I wouldn't be our responsibility.
Stop signs.
What's that?
I wouldn't be our responsibility.
county road.
You know, I'm not quite sure, you're right. I think what we need to do is a quick
Everyone has
clarification.
always said to me that they are not our responsibility because it's a county road. And I don't know if that's true. I honestly, I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I've been informed along the way is if it's on the county road, it's not our problem.
Well, I think this is something we might be able to ask our administrator to do for us. If you could reach out to both the county and the state and get something in writing that clarifies the responsibility of the borough on those roads. To give an example, the borough does salt county roads because of an agreement, and so there's different things like that. So I hate to put it on your list, but I think it would be kicking up to do it. What's that?
I will facilitate that.
You will facilitate it. Good enough. Now, the chief
Let
had
me ask
said.
you this, let me ask you this. When John Seville came, he made it quite an issue about our signs. And he said that he faded, missing, whatever. And the liability we would incur if there's an accident there and the people were not able to read that sign properly. Now, if this is a county road, is it the county's responsibility to answer to that complaint? Because it's their sign.
But it's in the municipality, so there's where.
If it turns out to be the county's responsibility and we give them constructive notice that there's a problem, they'll probably put it on their fast list because then they don't have a defense that they didn't know that it needed to be repaired. So I'm not trying to take over Len's spot while he's not here, but I think as long as, I think what we need, Fred said we need to have a process where we document that we told them that it needs to be done, if I heard him correct, like some sort of form or something like that.
You know, I may talk to John Seville about it too.
Right.
Because Jeff is the one that's pushing this big
Right.
sign.
They would know the other.
I'll talk with John.
Yes,
Here.
absolutely.
Never there. That's what I'm saying.
There was never a stop sign?
I don't see it.
Well, are we amending an ordinance, or are we, what?
You're amending chapter 106,
Chapter 106.
let's see, right, somebody read this?
I am.
Okay, but schedule, we're going to do stop intersections. Which is 106-20, schedule 6, stop intersections.
Okay.
We have Bowers in first, but we don't have Bowers in fifth.
So Ms. Moore, if you want to make a motion on amending ordinance, chapter 106-20, schedule 6, and then continue.
To place a stop sign at Fifth Avenue and Bowers, to make it a three-way stop.
So is it in both?
It's only in one direction.
One direction.
One direction, because it dead ends to where the old railroad used to be, or where the bike path is. So it's only on Fifth Avenue going on to Bowers, to make it a three-way stop.
And this would be first reading with a public hearing to be held on, what's the date? May 7th? May 7th. Okay. Do I have a second on that?
So the stop sign will go on Fifth?
I'll second.
The stop is gonna go on Fifth, going into Bowers. There are two stop signs on each side of Bowers, and this is where Fifth dead ends into the bike path.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Are there any other discussion before we move on with this? Okay, roll call.
Who made the motion?
Ms. Moore made the motion, and Mr. Root second.
That was the same as the trash can thing.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, that's it. We are.
Great minds think.
Mrs. Patsy, no.
Yes.
Mrs. Penny.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Root.
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
And Mr. Kapalas.
Yes.
6 ayes.
All right. The ordinance stands on first reading. We will advertise properly and have it on May 7th.
And I'm going now.
Okay, now, I don't see a good welfare, but I know this is a public meeting, so this portion of the meeting is open to the public. If anyone wishes to speak, please come up and state your name and address. Saying no, would someone like to make a motion to close the public portion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, public portion is closed. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Aye.
Second. All in favor?